Last week I turned 50. Thank you. That means always for the couple of months before that you start to look at, okay, what have I done with my life, etc. So I normally explain this as the first 25 years is trying to grow up. The second 25 years was trying to figure out what I wanted to work on. And now I have the outcome basically for me now is, okay, I have 25 years at least to actually figure out what I want to do. That is fun, that is interesting, etc. But it's about that 25 years that's struck with me. So when I saw the Driving Miss Daisy movie, one of the things I noticed was it took 25 years. Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to do was look at, okay, well, that 25 years is a long time actually to build the relationship. Now, I've been 25 years in IT, nearly 25 years working with ITIL. Lately, of course, the last 10 years, COVID, and all different kind of other frameworks. So I will talk about frameworks. I will have to talk about frameworks. But how you use them, yeah. I'm trying not to be a framework fundamentalist. I try to actually use it where it actually is necessary. So, Driving Miss Daisy. For people who haven't seen the movie, it's a really interesting movie to see if you take it from a totally different perspective and look at what the relationship building is here. It took them 25 years to get used to each other. It started with a car crash where Miss Daisy basically crashed her car and where her son eventually said, okay, you need to basically get a driver. Where she gets Morgan Freeman as a driver, which I think is awesome. But the key thing is that they had to get used to each other. Yeah, the different backgrounds, different cultures, etc. And she didn't want to have a driver. Now, if we look at that, that's an interesting thing because what we see in IT as well, the business really doesn't want IT. They see it as a necessary evil. Yeah, and it's like, okay, we have to use them. Yeah, we would rather use someone else, we rather do it ourselves, but yeah, we have to use them. So the key thing is that there's a lot of parallels between that. One of the statements when I watched the movie again, I found just right after the fact that she crashed her car, Miss Daisy says, to her son, who's played in the movie by Dan Aykroyd, the car behaved wrong, yeah? And I had something like, yeah, okay, we always see that. So the reaction of the son of Miss Daisy was the following: cars do not behave, they are behaved upon. And I had something like, this is exactly what we do with IT, yeah? We always blame the technology. We always blame that there is something wrong with the technology. The technology doesn't behave. It's behaved upon, and that's quite often what we're doing. Now, to be able to do this and looking at it and bringing this back to something that I've been doing research on. So the last couple of months, I've been reading books around this. I came over the topic because I want to know more about business relationship management. And what does that mean? That means basically business relationship management overall means that we need to actually work together. Business and IT needs to work together. It's embedded in most of the frameworks, and I'll show you that. You have to search sometimes for it, but it's embedded as and implied from that perspective. But we have to work together to actually get this relationship working so that we actually have better outcomes, better value. Now, the topics I'm going to discuss, I am going to talk about frameworks and standards. I will then actually talk about the industry, what is happening currently in the industry. And it's very interesting to see that how much the BRM topic barely gets you any Google alerts if you actually put it in as a Google alert, except job postings, mainly in the UK. So apparently it's big there. But I found something, and I'll show you that later on, which is really interesting to actually see that. And then I'll show about some next steps. And talking about the 20 days, yes, you can start very easily, very soon with some of the BRM. It's just a matter of, okay, what do you need to do? One of the first things that came up was the fact is, what is business relationship management? Is it the function? Is it the process? Or is it capability? The last actually word came, I'm quite active on social media, and one of the things I'm following is in Back to ITSM group on Facebook and on Google+. And when there was a discussion, and I started part of that discussion around process and function, James Finister from out of the UK works for TCS, and he basically said, well, I see it as a capability of the organization to be able to have a relationship with the business. It is embedded everywhere. It's not just in one group. It's not just one person. It is a capability that we need to actually start looking at. So I will work on that. So the first step was to go into the dark alley of the different frameworks. And I can tell you it's scary to actually go into some of these areas. You have to start searching for, okay, where is business relationship management? I will talk a bit about COBIT 5. We're doing a lot of work with COBIT 5, and I think, and Mark Smalley just showed it as that's what they want to be, the overarching framework that drives a lot of things. And I think with COBIT 5, they're pretty close to actually getting that. There's still some challenges maybe, but it's getting there. I will also talk about ITIL, where and how BRM actually entered into the 2011 version. I think USMBOK is quite unknown. It's an interesting framework that I think, and it's actually shouldn't call it a framework. We actually try to call it the Rosetta Stone sometimes, but it's all about service management. And then I wanted to have one standard in there, which is ISO 20000. And this is for IT service providers quite often an interesting part. So, went into the dark alleys of these frameworks, starting to figure out where is this business relationship management part. The first thing is COBIT 5. COBIT 5 was developed last year. Developed earlier, but it was produced last year. Available to people, and when you start looking through it, you have something like, okay, well, what is happening there? So the first thing is, don't be scared about the next picture. My apologies for this, but it's one of those things is you find things and you have to actually search for them. So what you do, you actually look at the process chart, and then you find out they have 37 processes, 5 in governance and 32 in management. So then the question, of course, is where is relationship management? Well, there is a relationship management part, and it's called APO 08, which is called Managed Relations. And that is one part where we actually can find this. Now, there's other areas where we see business relationship management embedded in that, but that's one, a very specific one. All these processes are defined in a very structured manner in COBIT, and you can really actually start looking at, okay, well, if we really want to do something around BRM, business relationship management, okay, let's pick one. Yeah, let's pick some of these processes and see what is in there. So I'm going to give you an example of one specific one here, APO 08. So you can find it in some other areas, but specifically this one, of course, manage relationships, create, and this is the purpose of this process, create improved outcomes, increased confidence, trust in IT, and effective use of resources. And I focus directly on trust in IT. Yeah? We already talked about that, and we heard that today already. Where is the trust in IT? So the fact is, apparently there is a process that we can use to be able to build trust in IT, according to COBIT. Which of course would be great. Now, I think building trust can take years, and this is coming back to Miss Daisy, and it takes maybe 25 years to actually get that trust. I don't think we have the time for that. But one of the things is the effective use of resources and making sure that we build the right relationships. Okay, so that's what I found in COBIT. Then I went into ITIL. I should know ITIL by now, but I'm always surprised what you find sometimes when you actually really start studying the books. In 2011, it was officially recognized in that version that we needed to have business relationship management. So it was built into the service strategy book. Now, when you actually build something in service strategy and not directly in the other books, people immediately start to think business relationship management is a strategic component. And that is actually even more defined in when you look at business relationship management. This is the purpose. BRM facilitates any strategic discussions about the customer's business when the service provider is involved. So, hey, great, we have a service provider, we have a customer, we need to talk to each other. So, okay, this is where BRM actually is involved in. But because it's in strategy, a lot of people see it as a strategy process. Until you actually start looking at the chart. So now you're actually going to the activities. And what do you find? You actually suddenly realize that they put the whole life cycle in there. So for the people that are familiar with ITIL, the service strategy, service design, service transition, service operations, and continual service improvement. And what we see here is that business relationship management, based on this chart and based on the activity, is this link between the service provider and the business. And the two link together. One actually has the processes and the policies and the procedures, etc. in place. That's on the service provider side. And on the customer side, we see compliments, complaints, RFCs, and we see opportunities. Where opportunities, of course, are more on the strategic side, new innovation that you actually see as an opportunity, and then going through that. I think compliment is just put as low as possible so that no one actually will see that in most IT organizations, because when was the last time you had a compliment? Yeah, that's normally when someone actually gives a compliment even to a service desk agent, that is normally celebrated with a party. It's like, oh God, we had one, yeah? Let's put it on the wall. That is the employee of the month now, yeah? So the key thing is we normally have way more complaints, and we try to actually just ignore those. But it's one of those more important things. So yeah, you do find it. Now, interesting enough, David Cannon, who rewrote the original 2007 service strategy book, he explains that in several articles that I've seen. I'll mention one later on, but he actually does say at that moment, it is embedded in the overall life cycle. It is not just a strategic process. Even a service desk has a role in business relationship management. And this is where we see it's not just a process, it's not just a function, someone actually is executing that, it is actually a capability. Because we need to have that capability across the organization. Now, the next one is USMBOK. USMBOK is the Universal Service Management Body of Knowledge. Great book, absolutely amazing concepts in there, and nothing should be we should be amazed about, because what it is, it actually is a combination of all the different service management approaches that are in the market for years, that have nothing to do with IT sometimes, but have been there in the service industry. So a lot of the things that you see in there are based out of generic service management. Ian Clayton, who is the author of this, and one of my friends, Ken Gonzalez, is working very close with them, and some of you might have seen him in previous presentations, etc. It's amazing, I mean, how much is in there. And it actually does help you to translate the customer experience. Now, one of the things when I talked to Ken last week, I had something like, well, I'm mentioning USMBOK, so explain to me, yeah, where do I start? Because I can start everywhere, and I can start in all different kind of things, but it's all about what they say, the outside-in view. So it's the customer view first, and taking that and building your service management experience based on that. That means that this USM block basically can be the Rosetta Stone to actually translate what we need to do. But these are the knowledge domains. And I'm just mentioning this. I mean, the key thing is that the outside-in experience, so the knowledge domains on the outside-in, which is the left-hand side for you, yeah, that is customer portfolio management, customer relationship management, customer continuity management, etc. Service fulfillment management, yeah, trying to fulfill services. It is all about the customer focus and then driving that within the service provider organization. So again, there is information there. I see actually way more on the business relationship management value in the USM block than in some of the other frameworks we actually see. I won't spend too much time on all the different frameworks. I can talk for days on all these kind of things, of course. The last one I want to mention is knowing that there's a lot of IT service providers here in the room. One of the things is, and this is huge in Asia, is ISO IEC 20000. This is certifying your service provider as you're following quality management procedures, etc. And it's based on several standards. Now, again here, and this actually was interesting because relationship management has been in previous versions when it was not mentioned directly or very clearly in ITIL, for instance. It was already in there. This is mainly based on ITIL. The key thing I want to show you here is relationship management and the relationship processes. And the relationship processes, there is one specific one I want to mention. Why? Because what is a standard? A standard actually says, okay, this is what you have to do. This is what you shall do. To be able to actually get the certificate, or you actually shall do this for all the processes in the standard. One of the things here is the specific in the relationship processes. What were the shells? That's what I was looking for. Yeah, what do we have to do? These are the steps we have to do. We have to identify and document who our customers are. We need to have a designated individual that actually manages these relationship processes. I'm not automatically saying that they have to do all that work. Establishing communication channel. We need to communicate. We need to review performance of our services. We need to document changes to the services. Define service complaints. Here are the complaints again. Yeah? We need to be able to manage those complaints. And measure customer satisfaction. So what we see here is very simple. Define your customers. Make sure you perform the right services. Handle complaints. And manage customer satisfaction. So that's in the standards, that's in the frameworks. Now, what is happening in the industry? About 4 months ago, when I started building this, the first initial steps of this presentation, I started looking at, I put Google alerts out. So basically, business relationship management, find it if it's mentioned somewhere online. Like I said, I got maybe one per week that actually came up. I keep putting my name in there as well, and it never comes up. So that's maybe that's a good thing. But so actually, I went through that and I had some. Okay, well, suddenly, 4 weeks ago, I had something like, that's an interesting link. I've never seen this. So what did I find? There is a Business Relationship Management Institute, of course. We are professionals, so we need to have at least an institute where we actually are linked to, yeah? So this is set up, it is actually incorporated or set up in March 2013. So it's really brand new. Business Relationship Management Institute is a leading training, certification and professional development organization that serves the business relationship management professional community and corporations. There's a lot of, there's information on there, but it's clear that they're just starting. Of course, there is a membership fee and all those kind of things. You know how it is with professional organizations, yeah? Interesting enough, they're doing webinars right now, already on business relationship management. And you just missed one, but if you're a member, then you actually can see one. There's some other ones actually coming up very soon. One of the things they said was, okay, we have what we call the business relationship management DNA. And DNA in this case stands for develop, nurture, and advance. Someone was very creative. And this creativity, of course, is key here. But one of the things that I see here is that they say we have these different things. We need to look at strategic partnering. We shouldn't be just order takers. We should be looking at successfully demonstrating that we can do what they call demand shaping. Yeah, it's coming back to what some of the things that Mark was saying. Business IQ. We need to understand the business. Portfolio management, understanding the services, understanding the customers. Provider domain, what is the domain we're actually working in. Organizational change management. Yeah, we're all focusing on different things, but the key thing is, if you talk to your business and you talk about, okay, this is what you're doing as a business organization, these are the services we're actually offering, of course there's organizational change management. Absolutely, things are going to change. So the fact is that needs to be part of that, and then what they say, powerful communications. Now it's in the startup, so there's some interesting, some key actually professors are actually involved in this whole institute. So it's kind of interesting to actually see this. One thing they mentioned is that, and they see it more as strategic, which I think is a bit unfortunate, but that might change over time. So they see it more as a strategic person in the IT organization, the BRM, and I think it's more as a function. But interesting enough, what they said, and maybe for some of you for a career path, etc., they see this as the step up to become CIO. Because this is where you actually understand the business, you understand IT, and if you actually are doing that well, it would be a step up to actually come to CIO, to the CIO. Which I thought, okay, well, that's a great idea, but not everyone maybe wants to do that or is able to do that, but it's looking at that. Now the other thing I did, and I've been reading books. The reason why I constantly read books, basically, and mainly management books. And one of the things this is coming through my social media involvement, I start seeing things that people actually mention. For the DevOps, for instance, there is a great book, The Phoenix Project. If anyone wants to see that, it's an. Did anyone read The Goal from Eli Goldratt? Yeah. The Phoenix Project is basically set up in a similar way, but then in a DevOps environment. So that was one that it's still on my reading list. But the one that I did read was actually Quantum Age of IT. We do have the book in the bookstore. I basically contacted Charles through Twitter. It's amazing sometimes what you can do. And I said, okay, well, how do I get copies of this book easily instead of waiting for 2 months from before Amazon finally sent it? So this is the quantum age of IT. If you are passionate about IT, read this book, because everything is going to change. And he is really talking about that change. Now, one of the things is he says, IT as we know it is dead. It does not exist anymore, or is going to go away. And some of you are already experiencing this. If you're just doing infrastructure management, there is always someone else who can do it cheaper. Yeah? So outsourcing is just going to go away. It's going to be utility. We've seen this for the last 5 years. One of the things he actually mentioned in this book was, are you a strategic sourcer or a strategic innovator? And one of the things he does here is absolutely looking at that and saying, look, are you a Walmart? Or are you a Holt Renfrew, or in this case Nordstrom, because he's from the US? So how many of you are feeling that you actually need to provide Holt Renfrew services for a Walmart price? Yeah? And that is one of the challenges you have. You need to have this enormous amount of service, and everything needs to be fine, but shouldn't cost anything. You need to make a decision as an IT organization who you are. Are you going to be a Walmart service provider? Or are you going to be Holt Renfrew or Nordstrom service provider? That is a decision that needs to be made. But also that means the business needs to agree with that. This is where cost and risk and the value out of that comes in, and we've heard that several times today. So, 5 skills to master here is to be able to get to that new stage, and specifically from a BRM perspective, is IT financial management. If we need to change ourselves, we need to understand better what finance is, how we actually are delivering service. Most of you are the victim of budgets. Yeah, that's the most your involvement in finance. The key thing is understanding finance, understanding the cost, critical thinking and analytical skills. How many systems have been put in place where the customer basically has some line, and I didn't ask for that, I didn't really need that because I had a totally different requirement, and we just assume that we know what actually needs to be done. And we see back coming here, communication, marketing, innovation, collaboration, leadership. Yeah? So those are some of the 5 skills to master in the new age of IT. Don't start with all of them, or maybe start with small parts of them, but look at these skills. This is what is going to be necessary. So, now what? You are looking at BRM, you're looking at business relationship management. The question now is, what do we need to do? Are you going to be in sales, or are you going to be a consultant to the organization? Well, sales is a bad word for most people. Yeah, you're in IT. I don't do sales. Yeah, and this is normally where the crosses come out, etc. Because salespeople are evil. Yeah, because they always sell this box with nothing in there, and you have to fill it. Yeah, you all have been there or seen it, etc. Someone actually told the business, this is what you're going to get, and you have to fill it, and you don't know how. On the other hand, you also need to be a consultant. You need to understand, okay, how can you actually work with the business? And I think you need to be both. Now, one of my biggest challenges with IT organizations at this moment, we're talking about the wrong things to the business. We're not talking about the correct things that the business needs to know. Stop talking about social media and the policies around that and all those kind of things. Stop talking about bring your own device. There was just some research done, 63% or so of employees would like to bring their own device to work. Yeah? So 63% that wants to do that and not always can do that. About 20% of companies, social media is not possible because of IT policies. Yeah? Yeah, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. We're blocking everything. So those are some of the things. Now, for me, business relationship management and demand management, if you're familiar with ITIL, etc. But it comes about customer behavior management. How do we actually manage behavior? So, some of the next steps, I'm going to skip to a few slides very quickly, but study the parts of BRM in the different frameworks. It is amazing what you will find. There is sometimes one paragraph that you have some like, this is awesome. Yeah, this is exactly what we need to do. Define your role if you are part of BRM. If you're BRM and your role is a BRM on a service desk, then understand what that means. If you're from a strategic perspective, understand what it means. If you're in a design or requirement gathering, that is a BRM role, etc. So you all are doing, everyone is doing business relationship management. I tell people, take a sales course. If you really are talking to the business on a regular basis, not too long ago I did the Dale Carnegie course, and I had something like, this is actually necessary for a lot of people to actually do it. Not because you're in sales, but because you learn a skill set of gathering requirements and understanding what to do. Now, the next 5 years, build a community in your organization, build teams, solve problems with the business, and take small steps. And this looks like, okay, this is just what everyone is doing, etc. Yeah, absolutely, we're all doing that. But this is where it's driving towards. the next 5 to 10 years, it will all be about community building. It will be all about teams. It will be about solving problems and together and taking small steps to actually get there. In that, mindfulness, I think one of the key things is you don't want a salesperson or a BRM that says, I'm going to get everything for you. Arrogance, etc. is out of the question. Yeah? We need to have empathy. We need to actually work with the business. We need to actually thoughtfulness, authenticity, transparency, responsibility. Now, a couple of slides for the last part, just to give a bit of a summary. BRM for me is, when I look at customers, I look at services and I look at strategy. That's the triangle. Yeah? Quite often BRM is quite often very much focused on customers, but it actually does help with defining the services. It does actually drive or execute some of the strategy. Some of the things you saw on some of the slides. That means that to be able to do this, we need to understand finance. We need to understand doing the critical thinking, analytical thinking, to be able to actually define who our customers are, who our services are. Strategy. BRM is in every single level. You can go do business relationship management tomorrow or in the next 20 days by talking to business people. And then coming back to the whole community part, the thoughtfulness, etc. This is if you search for this, but if you can't find it, Service Talk, it's from an ITSMF article. Summer 2012, Matthew Burrows actually wrote this, but David Cannon and Andy Kiss basically both had some influence on that. It's a great article basically on business relationship management and also specifically from the service desk perspective. The key message I want to bring is you do not have 20 years. You have maybe 20 days, 20 months maybe, where you need to start doing business relationship management. Why? Because the business will otherwise just say we're going to do it ourselves or we're going to outsource. This is a picture of the end of the movie where he actually feeds her without her complaining about what she's doing. Yeah, the relationship of 25 years between Miss Daisy and her chauffeur was ended up at the end that he was allowed to actually help her with something in the last stages. And that's, I think, one of the things where we need to make sure we get there, that we can help the business through business relationship management. Thank you.